Imagine hijacking one of America's greatest fortunes through a series of lies and charming smiles. Hi everyone, Ken here. Welcome to This House. Today, we are exploring Woodlea in Briarcliff Manor, New York. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode of This House. When Maggie Vanderbilt first met Elliot Shepard, she swooned over his good looks. Arguably, this was the only thing Elliot had going for him. He was born the son of Fitz Shepard, the president of the American Banknote Company, and grew up adjacent to high society, but was never really a part of it. When he was a young adult, he enlisted in the Union Army as a recruiter where he earned the title of colonel, though he never saw a battle with his own eyes. After recruiting over 47,000 men for the Union Army, New York's Governor Morgan invited Elliot to a grand ball where he was introduced to Maggie Vanderbilt. For her, it was love at first sight. But for Elliot, it was like winning the lottery. Maggie's father, William Henry Vanderbilt, disapproved of Elliot, often censoring him out as the punchline of ill-willed jokes. But nevertheless, Maggie was deeply in love, and within a year of their first meeting, the two were married. Elliot moved into Maggie's duplex in Manhattan, part of her father's Triple Palace, where he began starting small businesses. During this time, he boasted about how well his businesses were doing and how much money he was making. But the fact of the matter is that his businesses were barely scraping by, but Maggie was none the wiser. William was always skeptical of Elliot, and perhaps would have exposed him for a con man had he not suddenly passed away. With old man Vanderbilt out of the picture, Elliot now had control of Maggie's inheritance, insisting he manage her piddly wealth. This lie could not have been further from the truth, as Maggie's cash cut of the fortune alone was worth 10 times what all of Elliot's businesses, holdings, and accounts were put together. Now, with uninhibited access to the Vanderbilt fortune, he began establishing more banks, law firms, and other companies, making sure the public knew his name. As he rose to prominence, he secretly spent more than half of Maggie's $12 million inheritance, which was worth the modern-day equivalent of nearly $400 million. Even though Maggie saw her husband's companies failing, he always reassured her that it was not his fault or the newspapers were lying to ruin his reputation. He even went as far as to purchase the Mail and Express, where he would run propaganda pieces to make himself look better, insisting that Maggie read the articles he had written about himself. Now having Maggie convinced that he was one of the wealthiest men in the world, he decided to treat Maggie to a vacation home, once again, secretly using her own money. He purchased the 250-acre Woodlea estate and hired the architecture firm of McKim, Mead, and White to design a palace worthy of his ego. The 70,000-square-foot mansion boasted 65 bedrooms spread out over 3 floors. The facade was wrapped in blonde brick and accented by limestone quoins with urns and chimneys piercing the low-pitched roof. The home was laid out so that all the public rooms were organized off a central hall, spilling further onto outdoor terraces. Entering the palace, you would pass through a set of mahogany doors set in marble walls with an elaborate mosaic sweeping floor. Continuing forward, you would arrive in the reception hall, where a marble fireplace rose from floor to ceiling below an intricately crafted ceiling. Facing the front door, the staircases gracefully ascended, turning behind columns with wrought iron balustrade casting whimsical shadows as light beamed through the massive Palladian window. To the left of the stairs, a long corridor stretched towards the rear of the house, with no surface left unadorned. From here, we can navigate to the drawing room, complete with gilded wall panels and crystal chandeliers set above a herringbone floor. Next, the dining room was finished out with mahogany wall panels rising 2/3 of the way up the wall. In place of wallpaper in the frieze, a tapestry had been applied to the walls below the coffered ceiling. The library was overflowing with books in its half-height bookcases, and portraits were hung in ornate frames from the leather walls. The palatial estate was now fit for the king Elliot thought he was. Unfortunately for him, he fell ill as the palace was nearing completion. Not wanting to appear weak, he sequestered himself in his townhouse and told no one that he wasn't feeling well. He sent for a pair of doctors with no connections to high society, lest he be embarrassed that word got out about him being sick. Of course, hiring doctors in secret with no connections to high society led to problems. They ended up giving him a lethal dose of ether, and Elliot died in the Triple Palace before he could move into his own palace. With construction so close to being finished, Maggie had the house completed, taking what would have been Elliot's bedroom for her own, giving her the largest bedroom in the house. She did not visit it very often though. She only used it for a couple weeks during the spring and fall, favoring her home in Manhattan and her vacation house in Newport. In Maggie's later life, she became a philanthropist and donated millions of dollars to several charities. Even though more than half of her fortune had been stolen from her, she never really grasped how much money she had, nor what things were actually worth. By this time, rumors had spread about how easy it was to manipulate Maggie. In 1906, Archibald White offered to buy Woodlea from her for $1,250,000, even though it was valued at $5 million at the time, or the modern-day equivalent of $164 million. Maggie gave almost no thought to it and agreed to sell it to White for a quarter of what it was actually worth. Archibald chose to make Woodlea his family home, thinking he had gotten away with the bargain of a lifetime. But his wife put him in his place. She began spending more money than the family could afford, and even going as far as to pay for meals, clothes, and bills of her 20 closest friends. In a desperate attempt to make things right with his wife, he put the house up for sale for only $165,000. William Avery Rockefeller Jr. and Frank Vanderbilt snatched up the bargain palace and turned it into the Sleepy Hollow Country Club, which continues to be open to this day with much of the original mansion still intact. Which room was your favorite? Make sure to let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode of This House. I would also like to take a moment to say a special thank you to our This House supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. If you would like to see your name on the screen and show your support for the creation of these videos, please consider joining our membership program today. I'll see you next time on This House.